Hello everyone, it's Glenda and welcome back to Creative Grandma's Kitchen. Today I want to get in the holiday spirit and bring you one of our family favorite recipes for Christmas cutout cookies. This recipe has been in my family for generations and it's just a quick, easy cutout cookie recipe that I hope you enjoy. This is the time of year where we're all getting in our recipe boxes and we're looking for those Christmas cookies or those family favorite recipes. So I want to share my family favorite cutout cookie recipe with your family. So let me show you what you're going to need for today's recipe. So today's recipe only uses 7 simple ingredients that you should have in your cupboard. So let's go over these ingredients one by one. Now when we're done making the cookies, I'm also going to show you how to make a really easy frosting so you can frosting your cookies. So the first ingredient you're going to need is 1/2 cup of butter. Now I'm using salted butter, but it's your choice. You can use salted or unsalted, and you want your butter to be room temperature and soft. 1 cup of sugar, 2 eggs, 2 1/2 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 3/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Now I'll have the recipe underneath the video in the description box if you prefer to see it written out. So let's get started on making our cookies. Now before we begin, I do want to mention that this recipe can be doubled. So if you want to make a larger batch of cookies, then you just double everything that you've seen in the recipe. So first we're going to start and we're going to blend our butter, sugar, and eggs together. We're just going to cream that all up. I'm going to put my butter, my eggs, and my sugar in the bowl. And then you're just going to cream that together. Now make sure that you get it from the sides. Just go ahead and use a spatula and get it all down in there. And then I just go ahead and blend it just for a few more seconds. So you can see it has a nice creamy consistency, and now I'm going to add all my spices. We're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now I don't have my 3/4 teaspoon, so I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon. And then I'm going to go ahead and add 1/4 teaspoon. So you're adding 3/4 teaspoon of nutmeg to your bowl. And then I'm just going to blend the spices into the creamy mixture. Now the only thing left to do is add your remaining flour. So I just added a spoonful at a time, and you just want to add it slow so it doesn't go all over. And I'm just going to blend the remaining flour into my mixture. Blended together, you can just turn your mixer off. Now you can see this is really thick dough. You're just going to take your spoon and just get that off of your beater. Try to get as much off as you can. That might be an extra cookie on there. So I'm going to take my beater off. And then I'm just going to take my spoon and loosen it off the side, and I'm just going to get it all in the center of the dish. And then what you want to do is you want to refrigerate this for a few minutes and get it nice and chilled. So now is the perfect time to get your oven preset to 425 degrees. I'm going to refrigerate this for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to roll out our cookies. So here's a close-up, and you can see how really thick this dough is, and that's the perfect thickness because we're doing a roll-out cookie. So let's get this refrigerated, and I'll be back, and we'll get our cookies rolled out. So now since our cookie dough has chilled, Now comes the fun part. You need to get your cookie sheet ready. Now I'm using parchment paper. If you're not using parchment paper, you want to lightly grease your cookie sheet. You're going to hunt your favorite holiday cookie cutters. Now remember, this recipe is not only good for Christmas, Thanksgiving, it's great to make hearts for Valentine's Day, maybe some Easter bunnies for Easter. You can just use your imagination and use any cookie cutter you want. So the first thing I'm going to do is just spoon a little flour right on top of my table here on my rolling surface. Now I did go wash my hands with nice hot soapy water before I reach into my dough bowl. So you're just going to reach in and grab a handful of dough. Now it's up to you how much you want to roll out at a time. I'm just going to use a little ball, and I just press it together and form that round circle to make it easier to roll out. I'm just going to spread my flour out on my surface, and then I usually put it down and pat it down, and then I spread my flour, flip it again, and then just pat it down, and then I start rolling. Now with this recipe, you can make your cookie dough ahead 1 or 2 days. Now my daughter and I, we mix up all of our cookie dough a day or two ahead, and then we meet up and we just make all of our cookies in one day. It makes it so much easier. Now with this recipe, the thinner you roll your cookie, the faster it's going to cook. So if you want a crisp cookie where you like those crunchy cookies, then you're going to roll it thin. If you like a softer cookie, then you want to roll your dough thicker if you want that softer cookie. So now I'm just going to take my cookie cutter, just stick it on your dough, wiggle, and then there's our first cookie. And that's about the consistency. It's not real thin, but it's not real thick either. I just like a medium cookie. And then as I cut them out, I'm just going to place them on my cookie sheet. So I'm just going to continue and get my cookies cut out, and I try to get the cookie cutter as close as possible and get as many cookies out of the amount that I rolled out. Now also with these cookies, they don't raise really high. So when you put your cookies on the cookie sheet, they're going to stay roughly about the same size they are, but make sure you leave at least about a 1/4 inch space in between your cookies. So now I'm going to put my cookies in a preheated 425-degree oven. Now the best advice I have for you is to stay right by your oven with your first batch and time them, because these cook extremely fast. I'm talking maybe 4 to 6 minutes depending on the thickness. So let's get them in the oven, and then I'll be back when my cookies are done. So our cookies are done. It took exactly 4 minutes for these to cook. And again, you really have to be careful because they cook extremely fast. You want to cook these so you just see a light brown on the edge of the cookie. And then when you flip them over, they're hot. So that's what they should look like. So I'm going to let these cool, and then I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to make frosting and decorate your cookies. So the next step after your cookies are cooled down, you're going to mix up your frosting. Now what I do is I use my little dishes because I like to have a lot of different colors. Now, believe it or not, Creative Grandma has no red food coloring. I couldn't believe it. So I'm using pink for my candy canes. You're going to need some 10x sugar or powdered sugar, and you're going to need a little bit of milk. So what I'm going to do is just dump some powdered sugar into the bowl. And then I'm going to add some food coloring. So because this is pink, I'm going to add maybe 8, 9 drops because I really wanted red. But since I don't have it, I'll make do. And then you're just going to add a small amount of milk. Now try not to add too much milk, just add a tiny bit at a time and start mixing this up. If you add too much milk, then you have to keep adding sugar. And you want to get this mixed up so it's just a nice, thick, creamy consistency. And just keep stirring until it's all blended. Now the thinner the frosting, the longer it's going to take for your cookies and the frosting to set up. So if you look at the consistency, you can see this is really, really thick. I want it just a little bit thinner than that. So I'm just going to add just a couple drops. And then I'm going to stir. And you can see that now it's just a little bit thinner. It has a nicer creamy consistency to it. And that's all you have to do to mix up your frosting. So now I'm just going to grab one of my cookies. I'm going to grab the Christmas tree and I'm just going to spread my green frosting over my cookie. And this is so much fun when the kids get involved and you have all the different toppings like sprinkles or anything you want to put on top of your cookie. And now I'm just going to add some of the bigger sprinkles. I have little sprinkles and then I have the bigger sprinkles. So I want it to look like Christmas tree lights. So I'm just going to sprinkle that cookie with some of those bigger sprinkles. And that's how you do your cookies. So I got a couple of my cookies decorated. Now this is even more fun when the grandkids and my kids are here and we do it as a family. So I'm gonna save the rest of the cookies so when Carly's here and she can help me. I hope you enjoyed today's recipe for my mom's delicious cutout cookies. Let me know what you think if you make them in the comments section below. If you like this recipe, please make sure you hit that like button and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the cooking fun here at Creative Grandma's Kitchen. So until next time, happy cooking everyone.